$400. That was the price of a fully functional ransomware package, encryption, evasion, anti-recovery, sold on an underground forum in 2025. The person who built it was not a career cybercriminal, not a state-sponsored operative, not a software engineer with years of exploit development experience. The person who built it was, by every available account, someone with basic coding skills, someone who could not have produced any of it without AI. For most of the internet's history, serious cyber attacks demanded serious skills. Networking protocols, operating system internals, the ability to read and write code, not merely copy it, but understand it deeply enough to modify it for a specific target. Exploitation was not a button, it was a craft. Practitioners spent years honing it before they could do anything meaningful. The security community called the bottom tier script kiddies, individuals who downloaded pre-built tools from hacking forums and ran them without understanding what the tools actually did. Metasploit payloads, known exploits, SQL injection, strings copied from tutorials, spray and pray, try everything against everything and hope something sticks. Sometimes it did stick. Script kiddies caused damage, usually to small organizations with poor security hygiene. But their tools were well known. Their signatures were documented. Endpoint detection systems caught them. If software was patched and defenses were even moderately current, a script kiddie was not going to ruin the year. Defenders built their strategies around this reality. The skill required to launch an attack functioned as a natural filter, keeping the volume of genuinely dangerous threats within a manageable range. Then that changed. Dark web forums went from roughly 50,000 messages per year mentioning AI-powered criminal tools to 300,000, a sixfold increase in a single year. The filter was gone. The first dimension of the shift was the most visible. AI made code generation trivially easy for people who could not code. Security researchers at Palo Alto Networks tested a freely available malicious AI tool called Kawaii GPT. It was hosted on GitHub and operational on a Linux machine in under 5 minutes. Once running, it generated functional phishing campaigns, social engineering scripts, and ransomware building blocks, all from plain language prompts. A second tool, WormGPT, was asked to produce a script that would encrypt and lock every PDF file on a Windows computer. It delivered a working PowerShell script instantly. Not a sketch, not pseudocode, a functional script with configurable settings for file extension and search path, defaulting to the entire C drive. Basic ransomware generated in seconds. The output was rudimentary. Skilled developers could see that immediately. But rudimentary does not mean harmless. The script worked. And a novice attacker could take that starting point and iterate again, with AI assistance, adding compression, encryption, and fragmented data transfers to evade detection. Each iteration required only the ability to describe the desired outcome in words. AI performed the translation into code. The security community began calling this vibe hacking, the offensive counterpart to vibe coding, the broader practice of using AI to generate software from natural language descriptions. The loop was brutally simple. Describe the attack. Let AI generate the code, test it, paste the errors back. Let AI fix them. Repeat. A SANS Institute presentation in early 2026 documented this exact workflow being used by threat actors with virtually no programming knowledge to produce functional exploit tools. The speed of the loop was what made it destabilizing. Exploit development that once took a skilled team weeks now took an unskilled individual hours. One security executive summarized it starkly. The cost of going from vulnerability discovery to a working exploit, once weeks of work and thousands of dollars, was approaching zero. Generating code was only one dimension. The second was that AI did not merely make attacks easier to build, it made them easier to buy. An entire economy of AI-powered cybercrime services emerged, structured with the same business logic as legitimate software companies. Subscription tiers, customer support, user reviews, marketing campaigns, revenue-sharing models. The underground forums where these services traded looked less like the dark web of popular imagination and more like a software-as-a-service marketplace. Products: purpose-built malicious AI systems, dark language models. Jailbroken versions of mainstream AI tools. Custom models built on open-source foundations and trained specifically for criminal applications. No safety guardrails, malware generation, phishing kits, fake websites, social engineering scripts, all delivered without hesitation. The market was competitive and growing fast. Security firm Kiddie documented a 219% increase in mentions of malicious AI tools on dark web forums in a single year, alongside a 52% increase in discussions about jailbreaking legitimate AI platforms. At least 3 active vendors sold dark model subscriptions for between $30 and $200 a month. $30 a month, less than most streaming services. For that price, access to an AI that would generate malware, craft phishing campaigns, produce deepfake content, and automate the technical components of cybercrime that once required years of specialized training. The ecosystem matured to the point where criminals were scamming other criminals, selling fake versions of these tools to buyers who could not distinguish authentic from imitation. When a market develops its own fraud problem, it is no longer niche. August 2025. A threat intelligence team published a report documenting a new ransomware operation. The operator was not a career cybercriminal. The operator had used an AI coding assistant to describe the malware they wanted, let the AI write it, fed errors back until the AI fixed them, then packaged the result for sale. The price was $400 to $1,200 per variant. Multiple variants, each with different capabilities. The targets, once the ransomware was deployed, included at least 17 organizations, hospitals, emergency services, and government institutions. The operation was disrupted, but by then, the weapon had already fired. September 2025. The same team detected something larger. A cyber espionage campaign targeting approximately 30 organizations worldwide, including government agencies, financial institutions, technology companies, and chemical manufacturers. The attackers were a Chinese state-sponsored group. What separated this operation from every espionage campaign that preceded it was not attribution. It was execution. The attackers deployed an AI coding tool not as an assistant, but as an autonomous agent, directed at targets, left to work. The AI conducted reconnaissance, discovered vulnerabilities on its own in targets selected by human operators, exploited those vulnerabilities, mapped network topologies, moved laterally through compromised systems, harvested credentials, identified high-value data, exfiltrated it, at speeds described as physically impossible for human operators. 80 to 90% of all tactical operations were executed independently by the AI. Human involvement was limited to strategic decisions, choosing targets and setting objectives. Everything else was automated. This was the first documented case of a cyber attack largely executed without human intervention at scale. It prompted congressional requests for testimony, letters from senators to the National Cyber Director. An analysis from the Institute for AI Policy and Strategy noted that autonomous offensive AI capabilities were likely to proliferate, enabling less sophisticated actors to conduct complex operations at faster speeds. The tools that enabled this campaign were not classified technology. They were not produced in a state laboratory. They were commercially available AI coding tools, the same tools millions of developers use every day, pointed at a different task. The technique was not locked in a vault. What AI accomplished was not the invention of new kinds of attacks. It was the removal of the single thing that had always separated capable attackers from everyone else: the requirement to actually know what was being done. Malware that once took a team weeks to build now takes an individual hours. An exploit chain that once demanded years of specialized training can now be produced from a prompt. An espionage campaign that once required dozens of human operators can now be executed by an autonomous agent, faster and at a larger scale than any human team could achieve. In cybersecurity, the asymmetry has always favored the attacker. Defenders must protect everything. Attackers need only find one opening. AI did not change that dynamic. It accelerated it and removed the only bottleneck that ever slowed it down. The era of the new script Kiddie is complete. If this gave you something to think about, subscribe for more. We cover the stories behind the technologies reshaping the world, and there is a lot more coming.